Hey everyone, we're finally going to finish up our little bit of Livy that we're following Lars Porsena, the Etruscan king who's besieging Rome, and the Roman youth, Gaius Mucius, who's has now, at this point, snuck into the camp, tried to kill the king, but killed a scribe by mistake, mistaking him for the king, and now he's just given us a list of threats to Porsena, the king, and this is the kind of aftermath of that. So if we just scroll up right here, Mucius, this is where we left off. I said there's a long line of people after me who are willing to kill you. It'll happen at any time, at any place. It's not going to be in a battlefield. Again, remember that at this point, Porsena's plan is not to actually openly attack Rome, but to starve them, to besiege them. So he's saying, well, don't worry about that. The siege is actually going to promote these kind of singular subterfuge attacks on the king. This is how you're going to die. So the king, of course, is mad about this, and this is what we're going to find out. So we start off with this come clause. So we don't know what's happening yet. It's going to give us some kind of circumstance, maybe temporal, when the king or then the king, that sort of thing. So we have a subject here. We're going to be looking for a subjunctive verb to close this clause, but we'll get there when we get there. So then the king, simul, at the same time, infensus with ira, so hostile because of his anger, he's mad about these threats, and conteritus, thoroughly terrified. That's what the prefix con is doing here. Territus would stand on its own, but this is really scared, shaken in his booties with fear, with the danger. I guess danger is a better word for periculum. So at the same time, angry and scared, angry with anger and scared by the danger. Circumdare ignes militabundus uberet. There's our imperfect subjunctive. That's going to close off our come clause, so we can end it right there. So this is going to be our verb of the clause. That's going to be our subject of the clause. So you look this up in the dictionary, you see eubeo, and you see that means order. Order command. This can cause a number of different kind of I guess dependent clauses. Here we've got an infinitive, circumdare, which is literally to give about, to place around. That would be in the active, so this is to be placed around. It's passive infinitive. To be placed around. Ignes, this is going to be our nice direct object. It's accusative, third declension. And then what do we do with militabundus? Well, some of you, I'm sure, will see this endus ending and think, it must be gerund or gerundive, right? Well, I guess no gerunds end in us, but gerundive, you think, nd. Well, then you'd have to explain this un coming before it, because if we have things like he ought to be loved, he must be loved, amandus est, we get that that a because it's first declension. But if we were going to look at even things of the third declension, he, she, it must be led, or whatever we might have, we'd have agendus. So this undus is not actually a gerundive ending at all. This is just an adjective, like bonus, bona, bonum, only it has this bund. And this bund, we'll see it elsewhere. In English, we get the word moribund, kind of dying, a disease that's really going to put you at risk. And then that's coming from a Latin adjective of the same sort, moribundus, so that is dying. And militabundus is threatening. So we have minos as threatening. We actually see that right down here. So it's just a kind of fancy adjective. And then we can know from this dus ending, however, that it's nominative, it's masculine, and it's singular. So this is going with rex. So this is also the subject. So what does this mean? How are we going to translate this? Well, he's a king who is a threatening king. So in his threatening way, he orders that fires be placed around. And we don't have a object of this, but the idea is here eum. Placed around whom? Circum eum, about Gaius Mucius. That is, we're going to burn him at the stake. Nisi, so all of this is kind of going on. Maybe our come clause isn't quite over. We've at least gotten to its verb, unless, so this is what we call a clause of concession. And we say unless, but note that this is really just ne and si. So if not, under the circumstances that this doesn't happen. So nisi, unless exprimeret, unless he places out, right? Well, not exactly place, because that would be pono, but we have promo. This is promise, kind of disclose, tell all, and then propere, immediately. So here we had a subject in third person singular. This was the Rex. Here, if we're talking about him disclosing, we're not talking about the king. Just from context, we know it's Mucius who's our subject here. So unless Mucius discloses right away, quas. So this is going to be ultimately our direct object. This is our relative clause, and we'll see exactly how this is going to work later. We need to kind of keep on reading at this point. But what things, what feminine, accusative, plural things of insidiae. So what are these? These are treacheries, plots, hatchings, that sort of thing. So let's maybe say plots. Of plots here, because it's this arum ending, pretty clearly feminine genitive plural. So which of plots, sibi, and then here, this is actually going back to the subject of the main sentence, the subject as far as we have it, the Rex. So for himself, minas. So this is going with quas. What? So this isn't qui quod quod exactly, this is quis quid. What threats of plots for himself, and that's against, the king, against what threats against Lars Porsena per ambages, so through these kind of riddles, these enigmas, because he had said, oh, it'll happen when you're alone, it'll happen all this. What Porsena is looking for here is actionable intelligence, we might say. In certain ways, I think it's useful to think of Mucius here as a bit of a terrorist threat, right? He's this kind of lone operator. He's working against an established rule, and he's saying, we're going to be doing these, kind of secret bombings. Or are they suicide bombings? Are they, they're obviously not bombings, there are no explosives, but that's the sort of dynamic that we have here. And then we might kind of recognize, even if Lars Porsena is the enemy of Rome, we can see that he's doing a pretty reasonable thing here of trying to actually torture with all these fires intelligence out of Mucius. So jaceret is finally our verb. So unless he were, and this is Mucius, were to disclose quickly, immediately, what plots, or what threats of plots against the king through these, what we might call riddles, enigmas, jaceret, and again this is Mucius as the subject. So what threats he had thrown forward. So come here, now that we've kind of finished the whole sentence, we really have this circumstance here, and then we have the concessive clause. There's really no thing that just kind of stands on its own. Note that we don't have any main verb in the indicative. We've kind of got, then the king ordered all this, unless we have this circumstance where Gaius Mucius tells all. Although even if he told all, one thinks he might die. And then we get Gaius Mucius talking and this is our word for behold or see. See for yourself, Gaius Mucius says. And again, this is historical present. Ut sentias. So behold for yourself that you may see. So this behold with the result that. This is almost a kind of a purpose clause. Not a result clause, but look, so that you may see. And really this is kind of perceive, right? This isn't video, this is not optically view, this is so that you may get a sense of how vile, that is how cheap, how of little value, corpus, and this is going to be our subject of this quam clause, so that you may perceive how cheaply the body is, or may be, sit, that's going to be our verb here, ace, and we just learned this today when we were going over, I guess relearned, our pronouns demonstrative and otherwise. This is to those. So see for yourself how, in order that you may perceive how cheap a body is to those who. So this is agreeing in number and gender with the ace. We've got masculine plural, and then it's going to be the subject because it's nominative of our sentence. So this is a long I. To those who magnum gloriam, a great glory, and that's going to be our direct object, vident. So for those who are looking at, are beholding, are seeing great glory. So here we go. Behold, see for yourself, Gaius Mucius says, in order that you may perceive how cheaply the body is. You're threatening me with corporeal punishment, but how, I don't care about that. It's vile to me. It's nothing. To those like me, because again, he's talked about this longus ordo that's behind him, who see great glory. And so this is a nice kind of Livian moment. We don't get a full pause here. We're already brought kind of rushing into the action, and his right hand. So this is dexter as an adjective, and then this feminine accusative singular because it's really applying to manus manum, manus manus, that fourth declension, feminine noun, and the accusative. So we're looking at manum here as the kind of gapped object. So, and his right hand, and then Lafleur helps us here. This is kind of a ablative absolute. So he thrusts his right hand with the foculo, the place where they're kind of burning the fire, having been lit, for the purpose of sacrifice. So they're ready. So we're saying sacrifice here, and that's kind of true, but they're not sacrificing Mucius to the gods. They're just going to put fires around him as if it were a sacrifice. So they've kind of prepared the thing. They've brought it close. You can think of like a James Bond movie or something. They want Bond to talk, and then he just, instead of waiting to be lit, he just throws his right hand right into the fire that was made to actually burn his whole body, but he is voluntarily burning his hand. Let's pause there. See you in the next video.